In this video, I'd like to talk about something that you probably haven't thought about in a while, or maybe ever. I would like to talk about influence, specifically as it relates to our children. Parents are competing against so many external forces that are all trying to influence their kids in different directions. In a broad sense, there are three factors that give something more or less influence on a child's life. You can see these factors in what I call the influence triangle. The three factors are time, age, and warmth. Let me explain. The first factor is time. With all else being equal, the more time that a child spends with a person, the more influence that person has on the child's life. The same goes for impersonal things like media and video games. The more time a child spends with those things, the more they will influence his or her life. The second factor is age, specifically the child's age. The younger a child is, the more easily they are influenced by things and people around them. If it helps, you can think of a child as wet cement. The younger a child is, the wetter the cement, and the easier it is to leave a lasting impression on their life. As the child gets older, the cement naturally starts to harden and it becomes increasingly difficult to influence them. So we saw the first factor is time, the second is age, the third factor then is warmth. This factor has to do with the amount of emotional warmth or love that someone has for a child. Children, like all people, are repelled by those who are cold or hostile towards them, but they're drawn towards those who show them warmth and love. The warmer and more caring that a parent, teacher, or friend is, the more they will be able to influence a child. Even seemingly impersonal factors such as social media can tap into this category of warmth, where kids can perceive likes and comments as love and affirmation. So there was a group of researchers that spent 35 years studying how families could pass their faith on down from generation to generation. In fact, they studied 4 consecutive generations in multiple families, and they came to a number of conclusions, but here's the most important conclusion they came to. They said when it comes to passing on faith to the next generation, parental warmth is key. Sharing the gospel with words is important and necessary, but without genuine love and warmth, a child is unlikely to accept that gift of salvation. So of all the things you can do as a parent to influence your child toward Christ, genuinely loving them and being warm to them is at the top of the list. How do parents specifically fit into the influence triangle? Well, children generally spend more time with their parents from a younger age and feel more warmth and love from their parents than from any other source. Unsurprisingly then, many studies have found that parents have overwhelmingly more influence in their children's lives, even when compared to friends and media. In fact, one study found that adults inescapably exercise immense influence in the lives of teens, positive and negative, passive and active. The question therefore is not whether adults exert influence, but what kinds of influence they exert. It is unsurprising then, given their immense influence, that God has placed the responsibility of discipling children squarely on the shoulders of parents. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, he commands parents to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I am commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. So there you have it. We as parents are not only the most influential factors in our children's lives, we are also specifically commanded to leverage that influence to point our children toward Christ. We must, therefore, keeping in mind the triangle, look at how much time are we actually spending with our kids? How warm and loving are we being towards them? And we need to look at those things as early in our children's lives as possible. Now, before we end, I want to add one more element to the influence triangle. So far, you may have the impression that successful parenting is like a math equation. As long as you spend enough time with a young child and love them enough, you'll be able to influence them to follow Christ. However, that's not necessarily the case. Children are people, not equations, and people have free will. It's this element of free will that makes us humans instead of robots, but it also means that even the best parenting in the world doesn't guarantee that a child will accept Christ and follow him faithfully. Sure, Proverbs 22:6 says that if you train up a child in the way he should go, he will not depart from it when he's old. But a proverb is not a guarantee. By its very nature, a proverb is a general statement of truth, something that's true on balance, but not every time. In the same way, the things we discuss in these videos on balance will help to point your children towards Christ, but they're no guarantee. As parents, we can leverage insights from the influence triangle to help point our kids towards Christ, but ultimately, they are going to decide if they follow Christ or not, just like they are going to decide a multitude of other things in their lives. Our job is to faithfully point our kids towards Christ, but the outcome is between them and the Lord. I'll close with this. If you're looking for a book about discipling your children, I would highly recommend Chap Bettis's book, The Disciple-Making Parent. It is full of practical, biblical advice that can help you leverage your influence to point your children towards Christ.